here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it with the scale shapes. Here we go. So what I did is I switched from the key of B to the key of G to the key of E flat. And so what I love about those three keys is it trains your mind and your hands and your eyes to really learn the fingerboard. You can't just rely on your ear because those keys are so contrasting. You can't just like play by feel and wing it. You know, you got to really know your instrument. So these are the giant steps keys, right? So what I love, you know, they sound good together, I think, too. So what I'm doing here is like a three-pronged exercise where you've got the seventh chord inversions. You're doing it in cycles of a third. You're descending thirds. Mick Goodrick calls them cycle 6. He calls them by the ascending intervals. Schillinger calls them by the descending intervals. So anyway, that's the way I call them too, the descending intervals. So we got a 1 chord, then a 6 chord, then a 4 chord, and then a 2 chord. And the close voice leading happens to be only 1 note changes per chord. If I do it like this, if I do like root position, and I do them all as root position, it sounds fine. It's just not great voice leading. You can do this where it only changes one note at a time, and it's a little bit better. And then, after those 4 chords, I'm going to switch to the key of G. So I ended on the first inversion of a 2 chord in B, and I'm going to switch to another 2 chord, but in G, and it happens to be the closest one happens to be the second inversion. There's the second inversion, A minor 7. See if I can blow this up a little bit bigger so you can see what I'm talking about. That is what I'm doing here. So I'm going from 1, 6, 4, 2 in B, and then I'm going 2, 7, 5, 3 in G, and then 3, 1, 7, 4 in E flat. And you have to continue the cycle through a bunch of key, 7 times to get back to the original, the first shape again. So let me play that for you. And then 2, 7, 5, 3 in G, and then 3, 1, 6, and 4, and then back to B, and then G, and E flat. It's a brain buster, isn't it? Ran out of frets, so I'll just go up an octave for the next one. Now I'm in A sharp half diminished, and then F sharp 7, D sharp minor 7, and B major 7, and then switch to G. I'm in E, and now switch to G, 4 chord in G. frets again, and I'll take that one up an octave to B flat 7. I'm on the 4th line, E flat, and then in the key of E flat. For that B minor 7 in the key of G. So I finished, yeah, there you go. So that's, those are the 7th chords in those 3 keys. All right. Oh yeah. Hey, thanks, Adam and Haku. All right. So then we go to the triads. Right now, the triads are going to go up the neck. So you're going to go like this. You're going to go in the key of B. If you start low on the neck, it happens to be 2nd inversion, and then so I'm going to do the same chords. So I'm going to go 1, 6, 4, 2. These are the cycles of a descending third. So, and then I'm going to change to A minor, and key of E flat, back to E. Now, when I change keys, there's going to be 2 notes that move. There's one exception though. When you're on a diminished of one key and a diminished of another key, 3 notes change, but other than that, yeah, when you within the key, only 1 note changes. So it happens to be in this order: bass note, middle note, bass, yeah, bass, middle, treble, bass, middle, treble, bass, middle, treble. So it's easy to remember. So you can just go up, and then when I switch, there's that 2 outer notes move. Switch here, that happens to be the 2 lower notes move, G minor, and then here's that case where I'm at a 1st inversion of a diminished triad. It looks like an F minor 6 with no 5th, but anyway, that's a 1st inversion diminished triad. When it goes D diminished to A sharp diminished, it goes like this. You see that all 3 notes move. These 2 go up down a half step, and this one goes up a whole step. And then you continue the pattern, and I'll just go down an octave for this same shape, and then I'll start on the what happens to be root position on that G right there, and then okay, let me go from this G sharp minor to E major, C sharp minor. I meant to go down. There you go. That's A sharp diminished to F sharp diminished. And then, let's see. Yeah. And then continue E flat. I should probably go down an octave for this E flat. So I'll go down an octave for that, for this E flat. I'll go down an octave here and down an octave here. So E flat, C minor. That's the triads. It happens to be just the triads. I'm doing spread triads on the lower lower 4 strings. I'm not using the A string. I'm just doing the E string, the D string, and the G string. You might notice that, like, you know, this shape, for example, it's like, why don't I just play it like this? It's like, well, if all of them can be played on these 3 strings, and I just like the way they sound when you stick to the same string set per voice. So the bass is always on the low E, the middle voice is always on the D string, and the treble, you know, the melody is always on the G string. Has a nice ring to it, as opposed to this. It's fine, it still sounds fine, but I don't know, I just like the, yeah. All right, so then, did I talk about the scale shapes? Oh yeah, so the advantage of having all these down in these contrasting keys is you can be able to switch keys with a chord or an arpeggio or whatever scale idea, and you're not going to be thrown. So it's fun to improvise in these 3 keys after you know your instrument, I think. But so key of B, G, and E flat. Any sense. I think it's fun to play in those 3 keys. Yeah, thank you. So anyway, this particular exercise, it definitely breaks your brain, because you got to be hyper aware of not just the scale shapes and the triad shapes, but also the 7th chord shapes. Now, the interesting thing about, if you start from the root position of B major 7. Here's a little hack. I kind of like this one. You can group these 4 chords together because it has the same bass note. You can think of okay. Someone has a good question on my books. All right, someone says, I would like to know if there will be any more videos on how to study using your books. Will there be any new books? Okay, so yes, I feel like I'm always creating new things and new ideas, but if you have a specific question on something in one of my books, I'll be happy to talk about it. In fact, I prefer if you ask me, because I like the feedback of, you know, hey, I need more information on this thing. And I love talking about this stuff. You know, I talk about it at parties. So, hey, don't hesitate to ask me. But anyway, this particular little hack. Okay, so this is where I sort of touch on it in the 4-Note Universe book, but there are 20 4-note sets in any mode or any tonality. Like so in this case, if I'm thinking of B major, the B major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? There are 4 inversions of 7th chords that are contained within this mode or this tonality. Root position of a major 7. There's also the first inversion of a minor 7, which happens to be a B major 6. There's a second inversion, E major 7, which, if you're still thinking about it as B major, you can think about it as like a B major 6 with a 4th instead of a 5th. And then you can also play this one, which is a third inversion of a 2 chord of a C sharp minor 7. But you can think about it as like it's got the 1, the 2, the 4, and the 6. So there's like, like a sus 2 and 4, B6 sus 2 4, no fifth. It'd be a really complicated chord name, but anyway, that you could think about it like that. That's kind of a neat thing to do. You could try a bunch of different inversions of that. So it's like C sharp minor over B, and then D sharp minor over B. You can do that. It's kind of cool. Anyway, so you can think of these 4 particular 7th chord inversions as belonging to B Ionian. So that's a little hack. Those 4 chords, that's the Ionian set. Okay, and then the next ones, if you're still in the key of B, there's the 7. You can think of the Locrian, right? Locrian set. You can think of all those as Locrian chords. And then you go to the Aeolian chords. This chord, it happens to be the 3rd inversion of a half diminished chord. No, is it? Yeah. This is A sharp half diminished over G sharp. But I like thinking of this as an Aeolian chord, like a modal chord. That one's in my book, Voicing Modes. But that's nice, right? Have you seen this? Sounds like a G sharp chord. Anyway, and then you go to the mixed leading chords. You got this one, same one as the major, but the first one is different. So I'm going to go up an octave. And then we go to leading chords, and then Phrygian chords. This one is actually quite a useful modal chord in Phrygian, Dorian. Now you've probably already thought of this one as a Dorian chord. It's like a C sharp minor 6. From the 7th chord family, it's actually 1st inversion of A sharp half diminished. And then this one, you probably recognize that as the dominant with the 5th and the bass. Okay, so that's one. You can think of it as a Dorian chord as well. Same with that one, it has that one. So anyway, that's a little modal hack. Like if you start with the root position. Now, I happened to, in this particular exercise, I started up high on the neck. So I started with the 2nd inversion, so you can't do that hack as easily, And when you switch to G, switch to E flat. All right. Anyway, I appreciate your feedback. Let me know if you have any questions on anything I did. So this is a thing where you want to practice these with a looper. I think it's fun to practice with a looper. You've got the 7th chords, the triads, and the scale shapes. Here's in the looper, I've got the 7th chords and the triads at the same time. Okay, thank you. Schillinger, do you think his rhythm theory can be adapted to guitar playing? All right, so someone has a great question about Schillinger. Do you think his rhythm theory can be adapted to guitar playing? So I actually haven't studied that particular part of his writings in detail. Here, let me show you this book here. This is the Schillinger book everybody's talking about. It's very daunting. You see how thick that is? If you start reading from the beginning, I think the theory of rhythm is at the beginning, and So I actually started reading from at the beginning of the book, Theory of Rhythm, and it kind of lost me a little bit. It's very daunting, and I couldn't quite follow it. I started to track with the Schillinger method, like when I just kind of flipped open to the middle and randomly started trying to decipher what he was talking about. And so I've done the theory of I've done two of the books, Theory of Pitch Scales and Theory of Harmony, and that's where I really latched onto. But one of these days I'll get to the Theory of Rhythm, and but I haven't done that yet, so I apologize. That's a good question though. No, I don't mind. I like all your questions. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, so the Schillinger stuff, I feel like it's like a secret weapon. And probably like that opening book, the opening chapter is like is a gatekeeper. Keeps the weak ones away. But there's some really great nuggets of wisdom inside the book. Anyway, what I love about his cycles and his progressions, he gives more, like when you study counterpoint in school, you generally get a list of rules of what not to do, whereas the Schillinger method is not a bunch of no-nos. It's a bunch of do this, and it's going to sound good. So it's a more positive approach, I guess, like a more like a yes environment instead of a no environment, because his method is very practical. It's like, hey, it's not like really about pushing the envelope to come up with some weird stuff or stuff that no one's ever done. It's more like, hey, here's how to create stuff that sounds good in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of not effort. I guess it always takes effort, but path of least resistance, so to speak. And because a lot of his pupils were, they sort of had a function as opposed to form. Back in the day when jazz was, I guess the function was over form. Like, hey, this is we're providing entertainment, we're providing background for this and that. All right, so skip ads. What the heck? All right. Let me play this just to finish up. I'll do this thing. These are the seventh chords. 2, 7, 5, 3, 2, 1. Okay, switch back to B, but 4 chord. Yes. Yeah, so this is someone asked a question about the Goodrick's Almanac. Yes, so Goodrick got, I think, the idea of the cycles from Schillinger. You know about Schillinger? So Schillinger was like a guy and a really great teacher. He had correspondence lessons. He sent out a bunch of his lessons, I think in the 20s and 30s, maybe 40s. And a bunch of his students, after Schillinger's death, a bunch of his students got together and they formed something called the Schillinger House. It was basically like a cult where they studied Schillinger's methods. Cult is extreme, sorry. And I believe there was some disagreement over the legality of using Schillinger's materials and name. So they switched the name of the school to Berkeley. So that's how Berkeley College of Music started. And so the idea of Schillinger's methods were, they were supposed to be passed down. And I got word of Schillinger by way of one of my improv teachers at UNT, Mike Steinell, who was given that book by Jack Peterson. Jack Peterson was the guy who started the jazz guitar program at UNT, University of North Texas, but he also started it at Berkeley. So I think that Jack Peterson got hip to Schillinger because he was at Berkeley, and there's a lot of like Schillinger DNA in jazz guitar, like jazz instruction in general, and it's a very practical method. I like it. Anyway, if anyone knows more about that stuff, I'd love to know. But I think Mick Goodrick knows about Schillinger, knew about Schillinger, and so he, hey Michael, so the cycles thing kind of went with it. But the thing, I have the cycle, the almanac. This is the Goodrick almanac of guitar voice leading, and it's hard to find this anymore. There was some sort of disagreement about who had the rights to publish it and all that. And I'm sort of combing through to see if Mick Goodrick mentions Schillinger, but I don't believe he does. But anyway, it's a really cool logical method. The only difference between this, you could deduce this from the Schillinger method, but Mick's done all that work for you. They're available for free now in PDF. How about that? This, when you go descending thirds, right? So to 6, you could do, Mick Goodrick calls it cycle 6. He calls it by the ascending interval. Schillinger calls it by the descending interval. So there's this thing in Schillinger where there's something called positive progressions and something called negative progressions, right? So positive progressions descend in thirds or descend in fifths or descend in sevenths. Now the descending thirds are the things that I was doing earlier. Descending in fifths are like, a 2-5-1. That's a descending fifth progression. Descending sevenths is the same as going up seconds, right? So if I go C, if I descend a seventh, it happens to be D, right? So D minor. So now the problem is you get parallel intervals that are a no-no in counterpoint. So you have to change the interval, right? So that would be what would be considered an appropriate voice leading tactic, right? So I'm going from root position to third inversion. That would be called a counterclockwise progression, right? So if I go to the 3 chord, you go to the second inversion, and then the 4 chord, you go to the first inversion, and then, sorry, the 5 would be root again. So does that make sense? I went from root to third to second to first. It's really good practice, right? It kind of trains your brain to think about, and I think it sounds good too. Yeah, there's the 6th chord, 6, and then 7 would be, yeah. So triads sound really neat too, doing that. So if I do triads, like, 1 chord, the 2 chord, the 3 chord, 4 chord, 5, 6, 7. They sound really nice, don't they? So that's ascending seconds or descending sevenths. Now, he calls those positive progressions, the descending thirds, descending fifths, and descending sevenths, because he says they go from tension towards resolution. So they aim to resolve. Whereas the negative progressions, he says you can use negative progressions just fine, but they go from tension away from resolution. They go towards tension. And he says you can use progressions with negative progressions. It's different than negative harmony. That's a different thing. But he says you don't want to mix and match positive progressions with negative progressions. He says, what's funny is he says, a lesser experienced student might want to emulate this aspect of Mussorgsky's compositions. So he kind of throws Mussorgsky under the bus. I thought it was funny. Anyway, that, yeah. And then the only trick is when you do the progressions, you have to switch the inversions. So you have to either do positive or counterclockwise or clockwise. So the clockwise is you're going from root position to first inversion to second inversion and so on. And the counterclockwise would be the opposite way. You go from root position to second inversion to first inversion. That's when you're doing the triads. When you're doing the 7th chords, you go from root position to second. So clockwise, 7th chords, root, first inversion, second inversion, third inversion. So there's just one more inversion involved. Non-diatonic movements. So any tips on how to apply the inversion system in non-diatonic movements? That's a great question. I'll have to think about that. This is kind of a tonal. I've only applied it to tonal methods, right? So this 3-key thing that I'm doing here, the giant steps keys, it's still tonal. I'm still thinking of it as tonal, like 3 different tonalities, like changing. So I wonder if you could apply this, like maybe just changing keys quicker, maybe like starting in B and then going to G and then going to E flat, to B, to G, to E flat, to B, to G, G to E flat, to B, to G, to E flat. Maybe altogether that might sound non-diatonic. I'll have to think about that. Because I know there's definitely some, I don't know. I don't think I have a good answer for that question, but that's a good question. All right, so, what's also good to do? You can take a tune and you can see if you can apply these inversions to a tune. Say I do, I don't know. Yeah, here's Ladybird. You guys know Ladybird? It's a great tune. So maybe start here, I don't know, low on the neck, the C major 7, and then I'm going to go to an F minor 7 first inversion, and then no, and that one sounds like a little bit sour because the 7th is in the bass. I'm on an A flat major 7. Try it up higher. So try it up here. Start on the C major 7, and then go to you could try going up the neck, I guess. Fun to mess around with the voice leading on just a regular standard. Yeah. Let's see more questions. Let's see. All right. Yeah. We play some more on those 3 keys. You know what? Here's something interesting. Let me zoom in on this. I was messing with this earlier because these 3 keys sound so contrasting that sometimes it's okay to just reduce it to its key center. And on a tune like Giant Steps, for example, just to play B, G, and E flat, it sounds fine just to be in the right key. As opposed to like making the changes, like, okay, what am I going to play on the 2 chord? What am I going to play on the 5 chord, and so on. So I was just messing around to see if it would work. I'm just thinking B, thinking G, thinking E flat, just the tonics of each one of these. So just thinking B, thinking G, thinking E flat, back to B. Okay, so that's just thinking of the keys. Now, here's another thing you can do. You can just pick one of these to like arpeggiate, or because if I'm thinking of B, I might play different stuff than if I was thinking of E major 7 or C sharp minor 7, or like a 2 chord C sharp Dorian, right? Because there are certain licks that I might think of, or certain ways of negotiating the harmony. Like if I'm thinking of B, I might, someone asked a good question. What was the principle behind choosing three keys, B, G, and E flat? I heard about tonic systems where the octave is divided into equal parts. Is this not the same? Yes, it is the same. Okay, so this is the octave divided into three equal parts. It looks like a triangle. If you do the pitch class clock, it looks like a triangle. Each of those keys is a major third away. You could also do, augmented. Yep. Now, you could also think of the major scale inverted becomes a Phrygian scale, which is a major third away. So it's B major, whole half, whole half. If you do it flipped, it's a Phrygian scale. So which happens to be the key of G. And if you flip G, it happens to be E flat again. If you flip E flat, you're back to B again. So those keys, I think, have a by way of interval inversion, they sound really good together. Even though there's only three pitches that are consistent between each of those keys, like the sus chord actually in B, the sus chord of B is a common, or the three common tones in the key of G. So 1, 4, and 5 of B become 3, 6, and 7 of G, and then 1, 4, and 5 of G become 3, 6, and 7 of E flat. 1, 4, and 5 of E flat become 3, 6, and 7 of B. So anyway, that's the little common thing. So you could, like, if you get lost, just play some sus chord stuff. But yeah, it's only going to work for two keys. Anyway, so I was going to say, if I think of any one of these chords, like say for example, check this out. In the key of B, there's an F sharp 7. What if I play like a blues lick on F sharp when I'm in the key of B? And then where's the 5 in G? It's on D. I can play blues on D. And then I can, when it goes to the key of E flat, I can play blues on B flat. So let me try this. I'll just go from, I'll play like kind of like a F sharp blues, then D blues, then B flat blues. Is that going to work? I don't know. Let's see. Yeah. This is giant steps. Or I could just pick a random chord amongst all those. Like say I do the first one of each one. So I'll go play B major stuff, A minor stuff, G minor stuff. See what happens. Then E major stuff. Then D7 stuff. Then C minor stuff. first chord out of each column and just kind of seeing what licks I could play based on those chords. Or what about the second chord? G sharp, F sharp half diminished, and then E flat major 7. It's going to work. I don't know if that makes any sense. Yeah, it's fun to kind of see what you can do, and just those 3 keys are kind of a rite of passage. If you get good at those keys, it's like fends off Alzheimer's. So keep it up, everybody. Okay, yeah, great questions. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you later.